Leaks for Geeks. And it's time for the leaks for the geeks, the news for the dudes.
NYPD. Huh? Yeah, I went there. First story is NYPD. What does NYPD have to do with gaming news? Well, if you listen, you'll find out. It won't take you long at all. Okay? The NYPD, I'm going to preface this. Everybody knows who the NYPD is.
Mm-hmm.
They have been in the spotlight of like movies and stuff forever. They're the biggest, local police force out of any police force that there is New York, right?
Right.
New York Police Department, for those of you who really don't know what NYPD stands for. But we also know that lately they've been in the spotlight during COVID for a lot of different things that they've done there in that city. And then prior to that, for all the race riots and that kind of stuff that was going on and the police brutality. And anyways, there's been all kinds of cutting of the budget and all kinds of police officers that have left there and all kinds of, it's just not been good. It's not been pretty if you're a boy in blue in the NYPD. So why not just, spend a bunch of money on something else that nobody's doing? It's not a horrible idea, but you guys be the judge. Okay. This article is titled NYPD Game Truck Wants Kids to Forget Cops Are Bastards.
Whoa.
Clearly. Yeah.
Clearly there's a little bias there, that article.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So clearly they knew what stance they're taking when they wrote the article. And I get where they're coming from, but they're taking a spin on it saying, hey, NYPD is trying to do this fun thing to make kids accept them when really they're, just killers. I get what they're saying. I think that is a very, any true reporter would not take that spin straight on it. You know what I mean? But I get where they're going with it. And we're going to read this article a little bit here and there from their side of it. And then you guys can decide what you think. Mario Kart is the latest tool that the notorious department is using to astroturf police brutality. That's how they put this. I don't know that, if you were to talk to anybody in the department, they would probably say that this is a good thing. And if you were to talk to even in that scenario, my opinion is you would have them go through training, right? So everybody's talking about these police officers need to have more training and this kind of stuff for non-escalation and or de-escalation and not jumping to more violent ways of handling things and all that. And then I would say, yes, once you implement those things, then you want to also re-educate the public on who the police are. So, but the reality of what this program is a re-education program. It says over the 4th of July weekend, WNYC reported, I'm going to butcher this name, Gwenny Hogan, shared a photo of the New York Police Department's latest attempt for community outreach. The largest local law enforcement agency in the United States prepares to launch a truck full of consoles to seemingly entice children into spending more time around cops. I don't even like the word entice. You're talking about a fun truck and you're trying to entice kids into it. That almost always has a negative vibe to it. I think they use that word on purpose. Clearly the police department is trying to, just like you see videos go viral on TikTok, YouTube, anywhere in the past where the police officers are out playing ball, in the rough neighborhood, whether it be South Chicago or North Side in some cities, and they're out there playing ball with these kids and the kids are having fun with the police officers. I'm 100% for it. This is something that is building a connection between them and these kids. Some areas are doing it for the wrong reason. I know that there's definitely some police departments that do that kind of stuff to build connections with these kids to turn them into narcs, right? I mean, to get some information out of them over what the older teenagers and stuff are doing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually building relationship with the kids so they go, hey, cops are normal people. Cops aren't here to kill us. Cops aren't here, to ruin our lives and all this kind of stuff. And so I think that that's a good thing. That's the spin that the city is trying to take on this, in my opinion. They're saying, hey, let's get out here, and gaming is the new big thing. Nobody really is out there b-balling in comparison to gaming.
Mhm.
What if we set up these sweet gaming trucks and pulled into areas where people don't get to see anything cool like that and let them play some games at the same time, have some officers in there playing with them on the same team with them, things like
Right.
that. And this gets these kids, more comfortable with police and being, not nervous around them and knowing that they're actually there to help and protect rather than hurt and harm. Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like the idea. I think it's the wrong department. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I think it's the wrong timing and the wrong police department to do it. I think if we would have seen this exact same thing come out of an area, that seems to have better control, right, and a better police force and hasn't had issues, right,
Mhm.
then I think that'd be like, hey, this is progressive, and then you see someone like New York adopt it. Honestly, I
Yeah.
think that would have went over better. But the fact that it's these guys in that I know of, there hasn't been a ton of leaps and bounds and growth in their police handling and training. To dump the money into this kind of doesn't make that much sense to me.
Yeah.
It seems a little.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of in the last couple incidents that have made nationwide news of police brutality. I don't remember New York being one of those places. I mean,
No, none of the big stories have been, but New York is a common place.
There was a
known
time
for
when the
their
mob
police.
had ties within them, and
Mhm.
I get what you mean now. That makes sense to me. I just didn't
a
know.
deeper history
In the modern day
crime
of,
being mixed in.
CNN and all them who are covering these police brutality stories, I don't remember them being New York, but
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about though.
And it's really because it's a lot of inner city stuff, right?
Mhm.
People want to automatically relate it to the police, but it's also an area of a lot more crime, right? So there's a lot more police shootings and police brutality in Chicago too.
Mhm.
Well, is that because the Chicago Police Department is the worst police department ever? I don't know enough to judge that, but it's also an area of very high crime, right,
Mhm.
and violent crime.
More
So
chances of
yeah, so
for
you've got
confrontation.
more nervous police officers. You've got I think more police officers in those areas that are racist
Mhm.
because just like a lot of African Americans or however you guys want us to refer to you nowadays, sorry, but um a lot of them and their culture, I've got tons of friends that have grown up that way, that they have a certain viewpoint, even that I would consider um, to be skewed, right? Because of the culture that they grew up in, right?
Mhm.
And in the sense of people would call it reverse racism or something like that, right? But in those areas, you're also anywhere where it's rougher, you're going to have police officers who grow up with more of that than the average area.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Because there's rough crime and then it propagates and you've got a partner who got killed by a gangbanger and this and this and this. All that gets talked about and then it's kind of bred into you by the last cop ahead of you, the cops that trained you, which isn't good, right? That they should be working to train that out of them. But I see the common relation between those areas and it's not just because it's more dangerous. I
Yeah.
think the cops are making worse decisions
Yeah.
because of something that's in them. You get what I mean? Yeah.
I think that swings a polar opposite, though. I know that we're going to get back to the gaming aspect of this, but I think that you have the media and everybody's mama right now telling that police officers aren't safe.
Mhm.
And there's a ton of police officers that are safe. And unfortunately, for the ones we see on the news are a handful of people who probably shouldn't have made it that far in the academy.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Mhm.
But that's the unfortunate part is now we've made this huge thing out of it and it's causing a division.
And
And
it's self-propagating,
it is
right? Because then you've got the one side who says police are horrible. Then you've got those bad police because they're working, in the rough area and they've been probably raised with a little bit of racism, right, in
Mhm.
those specific areas. And so then they do make more mistakes on the ones who are already saying police are bad. Well,
Mhm.
then police are bad, and then
Just gets worse.
and yeah. So there's got to be something that derails that in those areas, and that's definitely I think has to come from a lot of purposeful training, specifically in those areas to rewire people from the way they're thinking. And
Mhm.
I don't just think that it's good for the kids to go play games with the cops. I think it's good for the cops
Mm-hmm.
to play
Start
games
seeing
with the
them
kids.
as human
because-
beings rather than
Yes.
a criminal.
Yeah. Than just criminals or
Cheap or-
potential
You
criminals.
know,
Yep.
there's even this mentality of the cops get, I think, sometimes that isn't that they're just criminals, but that they have to shepherd this sheep, or like this is
Mhm.
they have to make sure, and like you said, seeing them as just they're another human being. They just have a different, you know, life than you do as an officer, and
Mhm.
really understand. Like I think some of these police officers forget, and where they get in trouble is that they're a civil servant to the city.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to protect, of course, but sometimes they get off rails with the authority that they have, and they're not a servant anymore.
Right.
So
Yeah.
But anyways, I agree with you on the gaming aspect side or the side of this, is that I do think that video games can have a lot of healing aspects. I
Mhm.
just think it's kind of a weird place and a weird time, and
Yeah.
there's
I agree.
other things that we could be focusing on to better our police force, better the way we treat our citizens in pressured situations, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, you've heard people say they're putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound,
Mhm.
and that's what this is to me. I think if I lived there, it would kind of just bug me, right? If
It'd
I was
be-
on the other,
yeah.
if I was on the other side, I'd say this is going to be our next big move is a gaming truck. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's why. So that's why I'm saying it. And people go, well, why introduce it in an area that's doing well? Well, because just because it's doing well now doesn't mean that's the whole point. You need proactive, not reactive,
Yeah.
proactive education and connection between the police force and the people they're supposed to be protecting. If you wait till afterward, you get in this weird scenario that New York's in, where it's awkward to do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You want to do it ahead of time.
No, it's like, no,
Yep.
we already don't like you now.
Right. Yep.
We already don't trust you. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it works out for him.
So not to get
let's put it that way.
political with that, but I back the blue, but I understand there's bad ones too,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
my jingle.
Yep.
Same here.
I'm with it.
This has been a Delirious Dads production. For more information about the show, visit our website at www.deliriousdadsgaming.com. You can also find us on facebook.com/deliriousdadsgaming, twitch.tv, and YouTube. Make sure you like and share our pages to help us grow the channel. You can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Please leave a rating and review if you enjoy the show. Thank you again for listening, and we hope to see you next time.